We are the diaspora. We are the diaspora. We are the diaspora. We are the diaspora. The diaspora. We are the diaspora.
All right. Hello. Good afternoon. I am here with Christopher Udemezue, originally from Long Island, New York. Family originates from the beautiful island of Jamaica. And we are sitting down today to talk about Christina, as he goes by stage. Amazing, trailblazing background, both in the visual arts, but also in the underground club scene of New York City and the performance art scene and the queer scene and the radical spaces. And yes, I fell in love with your work years ago. I fell in love with you through Viva years ago. So I knew that we needed to launch this with you. So please, welcome to the space and introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Got me blushing. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina. I am a visual artist, organizer, and I wear many hats, but a creative all around. So yeah, my parents come from Jamaica. I grew up in New York, and I've been in New York ever since I was a teenager. So I have a lot of New York has brought me up a lot.
Mm-hmm. As did all of us, yes. And I think that's a great place to begin because I want to get to your artistic practice, but I personally met you through your space, your organizing space. Can you please tell us a little bit about how you founded your space, how you were driven to sort of create this underground dance space for gender expansive folks and queer bodies, and how that lends itself from your artistic and creative practice?
Yeah. So I went to school here in New York to New School, Parsons School of Design. So I was always around, obviously, like the eccentrics. In that space, I like came out and was able to find myself. And that whole journey really, I think first and foremost, I always tell people like I found my people. I found my family. And it's, the idea that you can actually be emboldened by people you call family was a very new thing for me. I love my blood family down. If anything, a lot of the projects that I'm going to talk about kind of like are a reworking and a reimagining of that space, even though there's trauma in that space. But I found my chosen family through art school and after art school. And through that celebration and kind of like being a kid again, really was through nightlife. I was going out, being boys, shaking my ass, and really, my name is Christopher, and I can remember my friend Antonia Blair, who is the mother of the House of La Doja, which is one of the families that our collective I'm a part of. I kind of anointed me the name Christina. I remember a lot. I pushed back a lot. Ironically, if you can believe, I was like, people being like Christina, and I'd be like, "That's not my name." I was kind of like, back it up with Christina," because I took offense to it. I remember when I was younger, I was just like, "You're trying to like come for me," and he was like, "No, I'm not coming for you." And one day he sat me down and he was like, "This is a T. I can see that you have dealt with a lot of self-hate as a lot of queer people have, and all of us have in dealing and kind of like loving your femininity and while holding masculinity in your body. And I call you Christina because I want you to like,
yes,
not talk about any of that. You're safe now. It's okay." And I was like, oh, I kind of gagged that I had so much work to do, and I would never come to that on my own. It really was a kinship that brought me to that space. So whenever I tell people my name is Christina, it really is a proclamation of me knowing and loving myself for all of who I am, and me reclaiming that like it really is these people who I've met in the city who have like kind of emboldened me to love myself, and that is the story of me, of how all these things around me have come to be. So in running around the city with these people, the House of La Doja, I got involved in nightlife, like hosting parties, going out a lot. House of La Doja, for everyone, as a very quick sidebar, is an art collective of people and a chosen family, and we make art. You know, two of the leading members of Household Doja make music. We were featured on Beyonce's song. What was the song? Release the Wiggle. That song.
You forgetting Beyonce's song you were on.
I didn't have no coffee today.
I'm gonna come for this episode.
She's never no check, so you know. It's
Beehive is gonna be listening.
Hey Beyonce, I love you. And so then through that and being in nightlife and having this joy overcoming my body, and then like being acceptance of my own self and my femininity, my masculinity, and exploring different looks and all that, I started to realize I was like, you know, this is fantastic. But there was something I always say to people, there was a key to specifically my friendships with Antonia Blair, who I mentioned, who was a mother of House of Doja, also known as Doja Station, and Juliana Huxtable, another close friend of mine, one of my best friends, is also in the House of Doja. They're both from the South. And I think that whenever I was hanging out with them, they would always talk about romanticize and talk about how much they love the South and they're proud of the South. Now, from then to even now, the South is a very complicated place.
Of course. Of
To
course.
say the absolute least, politically, historically, racially, gender, sexually. It's a lot. On the flip side, it's so boldly and beautifully Black.
Yes.
And full, and the food's good, and the music's rich.
And there's a history that's undeniable.
Exactly.
And musically, even speaking, you know?
Exactly. And it reminded me so much of the conversations that we were having about the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
And I held so much complicated feelings about my family, about my heritage, about my background. So much trauma was in that space. This is way before therapy. And I really start to realize, you know, I want to, on a very basic level, I just miss that type of celebration specifically.
Yep. Yes, Caribbean celebration and identity is a whole, like even as a Latina from the islands, like I'm living in San Diego, I miss island people. People don't know we are a different breed of the diaspora, like the food, the music, the ass shaking, the gyration. Hello. So yes, I needed to cut in and tell you I concur.
Yeah, it's very real and it's very specific. And when I say specific, it's not to say better than or exotic and like separate. It just kind of like, and again, I know all these things now, but this is 10 years ago. I was very lost, 13, 12 years ago, very lost in relation to my identity in that way. My family was like, you know, over there, and all I knew were my chosen family. So for myself, I was like, well, how do I love that part of myself that I miss so much in a way that also can be joined with this part of my life now? And so I decided to I got involved with throwing nightlife, being involved in nightlife in a few parties that kind of emboldened that space. And I was throwing these queer Caribbean parties, but then when I started to think about how many people came out to these parties and how much there was indeed a community of people who were like, yes, I'm proudly Cuban, I'm proudly Haitian, and I'm trans, and that's okay. And I'm like, if anything, that's okay, that's beautiful, and we're here, we outside, y'all. And I was like, oh, I'm not tripping. And so another thing to this entire body of work that I started to make from events to my fine art is that like, not only are we outside, there's so many of us, and on top of that, assimilation has done a lot to our community. You know, you come to America, you're Latinx, period. America, you're Black, period. There's so much levels to Blackness. There's so much breadth and so many stories, and Black people are all over this globe. In America, you're just Black. And that's, in one way, it's like, yes, you're proud to be Black. We all are united in that. But there is kind of a violence in the erasing.
The erasure. It's very Western. I mean, think back to the term Hispanic.
Exactly.
Oh, you people that speak Spanish, we got to count you some way in the census. We got to make sure we cut money in one way or another. So the people that cannot speak English as a first language, like the violence in the word Hispanic, and people still choose to use it. And so, yes, the generalization is definitely a form of erasure.
Right. And by contrast, to say the least, you know, I work in corporate America as well. And from my 9 to 5s, I would always see people celebrating being Italian, celebrating being from, you know, France or wherever. And I'd be like, Oh yeah, and so it's not that the celebration of the breath of Blackness wasn't present, but there was seemed to be this like belittling in that space, especially when it came to now we're going to talk about gender and sexuality. So all that to say, for Raga, I created this platform called Raga, where it started just out as a party to celebrate these things I'd be talking about, but I wanted to kind of explore what was going on with people who were in the room with me, dancing next to me. What was their experience? Just starting there by asking them questions and being like, "What's your experience with your grandma and your abuela?
Right.
And you know, what do you do to celebrate holidays? Have you come out to your parents? Like, what was their relationship? What does queerness look like in your island?" And really starting there, and it kind of just grew and grew and grew.
Yeah.
And even like discovering, and again in relationship back to music and back to nightlife, discovering just how huge the Caribbean had an impact on so many genres of music, the
Yeah.
like sounds we hear. I mean, telling people that Aaliyah was first generation Jamaican, people minds they're like, wait, Aaliyah? I'm like,
I
yes,
mean,
now
do
think
we remember
about
the
that.
video Rock the Boat? Those hips,
Exactly.
those hips were not American. Sorry,
What are
honey.
Jamaican hips?
Yeah. Those were
And like,
island hips.
exactly. Christopher Wilde, Biggie Smalls is Jamaican. And it's like the more and more I start to realize, all right, again, assimilation.
Yeah.
And if anything, it just shows just how beautiful and actually way powerful Blackness is
So
in this
powerful.
country.
Yes.
But so the Draga project just like also emboldened brown and Blackness in this country. And it was a way to kind of like parse out what that really meant in spaces where we can celebrate and also in storytelling. So yeah.
Beautiful. And I would love to jump into how activism sort of plays a role, because I think what you're doing is very political. And I think by nature, people in our skin, Black and brown bodies, our existence is political. It is political. And there's really no way to deny that. I think even the people that attempt to hide from that or shy away, it catches up with you because society won't even let us forget. And so I know that you're really active in a myriad of ways. I mean, one of the ways that we've engaged has literally been on pro-abortion platforms. And I know one of the things that you are proud about is showing up as a man in these spaces to stand on business and disrupt. So I would love to hear a little bit more about how you navigate the political through your good times and your good vibes, because you don't let us forget one, and it's still a time to be had. So I would love to hear about how you bridge those two.
I mean, I think that I say that like a lot of the Raga project, as much as it's a community and a family, it's very much like solo, like a reflection of my values and like how I want to move through the world and encouraging people to do that, and me learning in relationship with the community. I think that for me, because like you said, because the world won't let me and us forget that
Yeah.
they're coming for us.
Yeah.
I is as much as we want, it's a very American thing, which I've also realized to kind of want to escape,
Yeah.
which is fair. I mean, it's always something. It's always
Capitalism warrants escapism.
violent. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as much as, as much as like I want to make these spaces where we can dream of different sounds and spaces and kind of get away from the troubles of the world, I think it is super important to embed politics into nightlife spaces because they're just there, full stop.
Yeah.
That said, I think that I take it a step even further where I'm posting about all the chaos happening in Gaza. I'm
Yes.
posting about the like disintegrating like rights that trans people have in this country and
Yes.
non-binary people have in this country, talking about the disintegrating, just like body autonomy that people are having, specifically all femi and people and women have in this country in relationship to their bodies and abortion. I think those things are important because they do affect us all. I think it's kind of a specific abortion. It's kind of like I have conversations with my cis Viva Perez, who does thank God for abortion often,
Yes.
and she's always like, I'm so happy and like surprised that you stand on 10 toes about this issue. And I told him, I was like, I'm not like, a magic being. I had my learning curve as well. But I think that for me, when I realized just how deep it's about a bodily autonomy, period.
Yeah.
If the government can control, tell one person what to do with their body, with their own self, not harming anyone but them, and like doing what they want to do with their own body, they can apply that to anyone.
And they
And it,
are. They have
and they,
started with reproductive rights, and they have quickly moved over to LGBTQ plus rights and trans rights. So we
Right.
know that they're not stopping with one group of people. And I really struggle to understand how people don't see how the two correlate. In a
Exactly.
country where people are so obsessed with having their liberty and their freedom.
The cowboy country. Yes. And you know, I think that you know, activism is not easy. If anything, I think that, and this is, you know, not a dig, it's just like the position I know that I'm in. I think that because I don't just do joy, I'm in a different position than a lot of my counterparts in nightlife, and that's okay. I'm
Yeah.
taking on a different path for how I
Yeah.
want to do raga. I am making spaces where we can relax, but I also am very much aggressively reminding people who follow me that like we got to get in those streets in March. We
Yeah.
have to sign petitions. We have to be paying attention. We have to be looking out for each other because the government isn't going to. And honestly, it like, you know, I'm thinking about what you said. It's like all they'll remind you, it's going to be a pandemic. It's
Yep.
going to be another video of someone getting their neck standed on by a police officer that freaks everyone out. It's going to be videos of kids with their heads chopped off and charred bodies from Gaza. You're going to get the reminder. Eventually, it's going to be coming up. So if you just embed it into the fabric of your life in some way, even if it's a small way, then you're always on the current of like, we're outside, but it's dangerous here, and we have to hold both.
Absolutely. And so I would love to touch upon a little bit on how you're navigating those spaces, because I know folks like ourselves have remained steadfast. Have you received any pushback, attempted doxing? Oh, okay.
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
girl. I mean, you know, before I get into the answer is yes. Before I get into the logistics of that, to stay on the positive notes, I cannot stress enough. I started this conversation talking about family because it has been my chosen family that has gotten me through.
Absolutely.
Because the violence,
The violence. Mm-hmm.
very real. And from 2016 election, and usually elections are pretty intense for me generally because people are like, they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, even people who are following.
Either way. Yeah.
They're like, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, ooh, you can unfollow me. It's okay. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you don't have
You're not going to
be-
tell me to shut the fuck up here.
I'm not gonna shut the fuck up. So, from election stuff to specifically more recently the genocide in Gaza, I've received a lot of death threats and pushback, and you know, attempted, you know, threats of doxing that have come my way, and you know, I take it with a grain of salt. A lot of it is harming and it is painful, but I think I remind myself that one, I'm not alone in doing this. And if anything, I just sort of remind myself through therapy and also just like through my kinfolk to put the phone down
Yes.
and into the love that is actually around me and know that like one, this is temporary. That person is spiraling and it's not actually about me.
Yeah.
And two, I know what I'm doing, and I've been doing this for a long time. I'm
course.
learning, like everybody else, I'm not in any way an expert on everything,
Of course.
but to sit idly, living in a country that has made its name for itself through violence and blood and the control of others, and just be like, everything is fine. Is that meme of that dog sitting in the fire? And it's not real. And I can't give that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I've experienced a bunch of stuff, but, you know, I keep it pushing and I keep it moving. And I also, the older I get and the more I do this, I learn to also know when to pause, which has been important. Pause and care for myself so that I can show up 100%.
Of course. And just to bring us to a close, because time flies when you're carrying on, I think it would be wonderful to sort of bring us back to, what do you imagine? What do you fantasize? What do you envision? What are the happy thoughts that keep you moving. So if someone were to ask, how do we keep pushing forward? And this is not to sort of put a Band-Aid over the pain, but we need to move through these movements with love and joy, even in our most radical, angered self. I know, as someone who has lived in Israel and worked in the West Bank, lived there during the 2014 Gaza war, I know that you cannot do the work that needs to be done for any marginalized group of people if you are angry. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it from the counter, right? Anger cannot take us very far. And even myself, I have to remind myself through therapy, through prayer, through church, through everything. I be like, I talk to the ancestors, I talk to the saints, my father Santero, I pull everyone in, right? The cards. I have to even remind myself, because the rage is real and it's warranted. But in your beautiful words, how would you tell a group of folks to keep it moving?
I think that it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. But I do think that I think as much as we are so connected nowadays through these things,
Mm-hmm.
and as much as we have all these access to be with each other through other means, I think that, to be honest, unplugging and
Yeah.
sitting in some grass, call up a sis, go get lunch, cry on their shoulder, and like be IRL with people and the world and the earth as much as possible. If you can get therapy, get their access to therapy. You know, having your spiritual practice for yourself in a very private way is very real. And I think that like, and also like, and find those spaces of joy. That doesn't have to be a nightlife space.
Yeah.
That can be, you know, brunch with friends, that can be a poetry reading, that can be, you know, but I do think people need people. I think that
No space.
I get some people who are just like, oh no, I really enjoy, because I'm very much that way as well, time alone. But I do think people need people. And if things get hard, turn off your phone, like leave your phone at home. Go for a walk. Leave your phone at home. Say, hey, friend, I'm going to meet you at this cafe, but I'm leaving my phone at home. Meet them. Don't have your phone all day, you know, and unplug and take care of yourself. Like, it's hard, you know, self-care hashtag is a very tough thing.
Yes, definitely.
But if you have it top of mind to be taking care of yourself and to set boundaries, you can really create a space where you are refreshed to wake up the next day. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow even, but in 3 days from now, ready to keep pushing, because, you know, our ancestors did not just pass down trauma, they passed down bravery and strength. So we have it in our genes to also survive, and not just survive, but thrive.
Yeah.
So tap into that. Just tap into what you need to take care of yourself spiritually and mentally.
Even I needed to hear that. So a little selfish closing question. Well, Christina, I just adore you, and I knew you were going to give me a lot, but and I just want to say, I know I speak on behalf of so many others in the community, where I just want to remind you that I have been seeing you, and I have felt relief when I see you, because it takes a lot for Black folks to stand in the gap right now, wherever they may be, because you know who they love to come for first. any given time. So when I see us out there, emboldened, taking risks, it reminds me that I'm on the road. I'm on the right road. So thank you for the work you do on the underground, in real life, in space, and until next time.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to hold that.
Well, that wraps us on our first podcast episode, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in, for listening. If you liked what you heard, please send radical and amazing artists my way. Send those recommendations. Who would you like to hear from next? And please, as always, if you like it, stream it, share it, tell the world about it, shout it from your rooftops. I'm here to be of service to the community today and always. So much love to you all. Have a great day.